Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you
I like that theme song, huh?
everybody knows your name.
So what's...
And they're
I don't have a
always
picture on mine.
glad you
There's no
came.
picture. Oh, okay, it's coming.
You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people...
Good evening. Welcome to What's Up with Willa today. Appreciate you tuning in today. It's going to be a pretty good show tonight. I have a special guest on tonight. I have Rob Lawson on tonight with us. He's running for city council, and he agreed to sit here with me tonight. So how's that?
That's what's up.
Yay, right? So I'm quite thrilled to have him here today. I bump into Rob a lot at the Y. Almost every morning, probably.
Pretty much.
We bump into each other, and so I'm really happy that he could be here today to tell us about his him running for city council. So welcome, Rob.
Well, thank you, Will. I appreciate that introduction, and no pressure. You said it's going to be a great show, so I don't know. Hopefully I have something I can bring that's going to add to the show.
I'm sure.
But thank you for that warm introduction.
I'm sure you'll enlighten us on your plans for being on city council.
Thank you.
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Like you were raised in Harrisburg?
Absolutely. Yep. So I've been born and raised in Harrisburg. Grew up on Holly Street and Foster Street. They don't intersect. Those are just two streets that I lived on in different periods of my life, and I now live at 2nd and Division Street. So I've kind of bounced around the city here. In my younger days, you know, you'd get into a rental and the rent would become a little bit too high, so then you move to the next rental. So I've lived throughout the entire city, I'd say, in my life. But we've settled here. I'm raising my children here, and Harrisburg is a great place to call home.
Well, I lived right across the river recently, and I love this area. Since I started working over here about 3 years ago, and I walk around, and I just love the feel around here. It's really nice. All the local shops and stuff you can go to and eat, and that kind of thing. So I understand what you're saying about living around here. Must have been growing up around here must have been great. It's probably a big difference though today than it was when you were growing up.
Somewhat. There are some differences, you know, and that comes in time. But you know, there are certain pockets where it still feels the same. The biggest difference that I see right now that I think stands out to me, and it's maybe something that happens in our larger communities, but communities aren't quite communities anymore. When I was a kid, I remember that if I went outside, I didn't just have a mom at home, I had 5 moms on the block. You know, if I was doing something I shouldn't be doing, the neighbors down the street would tell me about it, and if I didn't listen, they would tell my mother about it, and you know, then it would be corrected. You know, we used to run outside for hours and hours at end, from sunup to sundown, and you just make it in the house by the time the street lights come on. We don't do that so much anymore because I don't think we have as much trust in our neighbors as we had in the past when I was coming up, and that's something that I missed. But what I do see that reminds me of when I was a kid is I do see several people that have like a certain pride in this town, and you'll meet people all over the city that they take ownership of their block, of their house, of their little area, and they take ownership of this city. And that's something that I saw as a kid and I still see today. And that's why I think we have better days ahead of us, because we have these people that are rooted here, that want to make Harrisburg work. And because of that, I think we have a bright future.
That's great. I have to agree with you about that. So some of the things that go around that's going on today, I was going to ask you a couple of questions about them. Like I saw you the DEI programs that are like gone now with this administration. Like they've erased all kind of phrases now that used to be mainstream on signs, and just like trying to just do away with equality, it seems like. I was wondering what your thoughts were on some of that.
My thoughts are that they're not gone, but they're paused. We're seeing that there's a pushback from a lot of people who maybe don't quite understand what the DEI programs really were. Many people, I think, they thought it was some type of affirmative action where we have to push forward certain types of people into positions just because they're that type of person.
Right.
Instead of saying, hey, we need to be more aware of the people that live around us, so that we understand that we are a community of several different types of people, and try to take off our own blinders, because we all have our own blinders that we've grown up with, and that we've just accepted into our minds. But we, of well-meaning people, we don't want those blinders to stop us from being able to work with our neighbors.
Right.
There are some people that are not well-meaning who do not want to work with their neighbors if they're not like them. The majority of people, I believe, are well-meaning, and they will look at someone and say, hey, if this person is black, white, gay, straight, transgendered, whatever, if they can do the job that's in front of them, they should be the person to get the job. But when people read DEI, they think that we say that the person, whether they fit any of those categories, should be put there whether or not they can do the job.
Right.
And that's not what DEI is about. DEI is all about getting out of your own way and letting you see the person in front of you. So this gets into a little bit of what you may have seen earlier when you said you saw my speech in front of the church. We're all made in the image of God, right? Every single one of us. Believers, non-believers, God created all of us. So if we're all made in the image of God, it's incumbent on me to see that in every person that I meet. And when I can do that, then you don't need a term like DEI. You're already doing the DEI, because you're saying, okay, you're a child of God, just like I am. God loves you just like he loves me. And we have differences, but you know what? They're not that important, because we are all his children. And that's what DEI really does. And I don't think many who are pushing anti-DEI things are thinking of that. So that's why I think it's just a pause. When we get out of this, we have to get back what we think we've lost phase in America, which is where I think we are. We'll start seeing some of that stuff come back in when we start doing actual common sense, saying, hey, how do we work together as a family?
That's a very good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, because just because you look different doesn't mean you're not able to do the job, or or anything like that. Because you'd be surprised when you look at someone. You should never judge a book by its cover.
Never.
That is for sure. Because I've run into lots of people, like for instance at the pool. All I see is people in their suit and cap, right? So you never know what someone does for a living. I have a little thing I do when I'm at the pool, because I don't know what you would do for a living, because I only see you swim. So it's neat to imagine what someone does for a living, and I kind of find myself as a good judge of people. And sometimes I'll just try to guess what someone does for a living. And then maybe sometime in a conversation, I might nonchalantly ask them, oh, so what do you do anyways? And it's fascinating to hear what people do, or what they did before they retired or whatnot. Because I deal with a lot of retired people in there at the pool. And I'm fascinated with what people. I mean, I hear the neatest stories ever. I mean, it's kind of like when you're a lifeguard. It's kind of like being a bartender. You hear people's stories. Sometimes you're just in the pool with someone, treading back and forth in front of you, and you have a conversation with them, and you find out so many things that about this person that you had no idea. They did so much, people that have just accomplished so much that it doesn't show. And you can't judge a person just by looking at them, that, they're what they are, or what they do, or how they feel. So, yeah. So I was wondering how you feel about the LGBT plus community, LGBTQ plus community. How's your feelings on, do you support the community? Their rights and
I absolutely. This again goes back to that core belief, and it's a belief that has grown over time as I keep researching and keep looking deeper and deeper and seeing this. LGBTQ rights are human rights. Again, someone should not be discriminated against based on any of these factors. And years ago, someone would have asked me, I would have thought, okay, well, this was a choice that someone made, and maybe they shouldn't have made that choice. But as I started looking and meeting people and seeing the person in front of me, I started seeing, well, this is something that this person's been dealing with throughout their life. And I look at it when I see little kids, and I can say, I can see this happening with a child. So there's no way that I would believe that this person would say, hey, I'm going to make a choice that I am going to, struggle through my life because of these differences that I'm presenting. And then when I become an adult, I should be discriminated against. No. We have people, or the people that we meet are people that are deserving of dignity, respect, and they must be treated as the equal people that they are in our society. And so when I look at that, do I support right for people in that community? Absolutely, but I don't even think it should be a discussion. It should just be automatic.
Everyone should be respected.
Everyone should be respected.
Right.
And the government should not be on the backs of any of our people. And that's just the way that I feel of it. If there's a right, it should be extended to all. And that's what I feel.
That's a good way to feel, I believe, because you're on my show today. So.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a great answer, because like we all have feelings, we all have ideas, we all have skills, that we want to share. We all have needs and wants and dreams, regardless of what we look like or how we act, how we dress. We all have dreams and wants and needs. We all work, we all pay our bills, we all pay our taxes. So we should be treated just like anyone else. So yeah, thank you for that. There's been times when I've been around the police officers of Harrisburg, and let me tell you, when you get 3 or 4 of them together in their uniforms, it's quite, I don't know how to say it. It's, wow. I mean, they really present a force, you know what I mean? They present they're a presence. When they're there, it's like, okay, I feel pretty safe now. How do you feel about what you might be able to do to help the police department keep our streets a little safer?
Yeah, it's So that's a kind of like a tricky question, and it may not have been meant to be a tricky question.
No, I just wrote it
So
up, man.
yeah, just wrote it up. This is right there.
It just
the
came to
reason-
my brain, you know.
The reason I say that is because when you were saying that you see 3 or 4 of the cops together in uniform, you feel safe. Not everyone in our community feels that way when they see 3 or 4 cops gathered together in uniforms and guns on the hip and they're standing there. Not everyone feels safe. I think we can help with crime when we get to a point where everyone feels safe when they see the police in front of them. We have again 2 different societies. One society where when you call the police, they come and they're there looking to help you regardless. In another society, when you call the police, they may or may not be there to help you. What I want to do is make sure that with Harrisburg's police, every time the police are called, and they make it, every time the police interact with one of our citizens, it's because they're there to help. So when I believe that our citizenry is not afraid of the police, that's going to help start pulling down crime, because now you're going to have individuals, when they see something happening, they're going to feel okay to call, because right now sometimes people don't call the police for one of 2 reasons. They see an infraction, it bothers them, but they're afraid if they call the police on this individual, it's going to make something really bad happen to that person. The repercussions I would look at is not so much that the person being called on is going to get after the person who's calling, but the person, like they may say a kid is, and I say kid, I use that loosely, that could be anyone from, 13 to 30. But the kid is doing something that may be slightly illegal. Maybe they're, times are changing. Maybe they're smoking pot on the corner. It's a nuisance to you because you don't want to smell it. You don't want to see it. But you know that if you call the police on this kid, you may ruin his life forever. You don't do that. And then that may lead to other things, happening because we didn't stop a problem here. When we know that the police respect all of our citizens, you call the police on this guy, he comes out there and he sees the kid. It's like, hey, this is Johnny. I know Johnny. He grew up down the street. He's smoking pot out here. He's bothering his neighbor. Johnny, put it out. Go home. Don't be a nuisance. That may stop, things from going down a different path. You call the police on Johnny now and the police officer comes and strikes fear in Johnny. Johnny may run. Johnny may do something where Johnny may get hurt. Johnny may be arrested for that joint that he was smoking, and now Johnny has a criminal record and Johnny can't get a job. And what does Johnny do when he can't get a job? He goes out and he sees friends that are stealing a car, and then Johnny goes and steals a car. So like it's not like the quick fix stuff like, hey, we can do this and this is going to solve crime, but it's holistic. We have to make sure that we first make sure that our citizens feel safe when calling the police. All of the citizens. Right now we have the haves and have-nots. The haves feel safe. The have-nots feel a little hesitant when they call the police. If we can make that situation safe, then you start seeing that people will get them engaged before it becomes a tragedy. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
No, that was a really good answer. Yeah. That goes right along with, like, I drive around Harrisburg. I see homeless people everywhere. Not everywhere, but you'll see them on the street here, looking for money to help them out. They're homeless. What are your thoughts on how do we help the homeless that are in these camps here and there throughout Harrisburg? How are we able to reach out and help them? I mean, I do see at times they'll pull up with food for people. They seem to try to take care of some of the garbage. They put out cans and stuff from the use to get rid of their refuge and stuff. But what is your ideas on how to help the homeless that are here in Harrisburg? Do you have some ideas on that? Did I catch you off guard on that one, or?
No, because ironically, I just came from feeding homeless people downtown, as I do pretty much every Thursday. Really, it's been the last 10 years I've been doing this.
Awesome.
Working with our unhoused population, just providing a hot meal where they're at, so that, we're not asking you to come to a shelter or come to anything. We're just like, hey, we're just come grab a plate, and you'll be treated with dignity and respect. So the homeless problem is multifaceted, and it doesn't have a quick fix, except for the first thing we have to do is, if someone's homeless, give them a house. Housing first is a thought. It's an initiative that people are leaning into now. Like homelessness that is long-term or chronic, there's usually not one factor that puts that person in that place. You're usually dealing with, problems of affordability, problems of mental illness, problems of addiction, and problems of, issues with family, whatever. And that all comes together, and it keeps that person from seeking help to get a home because they're not addressing those other issues. But give them a house first. If we figure out a way to get them into a home, now that we are no longer looking at survival, you have a roof over your head, now we can start working on some of those other things. Get them a home, get them tied into mental health services and also to addiction services, family counselors, the like of that, to help bring these families back together. I work with another organization that's working on building a tiny house community down where there's they call it VOPA, I believe it's Veterans Outreach of PA. They have a tiny home village there now. And we're looking to build something that gives a permanent housing solution right in that same land there. And we're going through all the environmental stuff now, where they're looking to see how do we alleviate like the fact that it's near PennDOT, so there's flood concerns you have to make sure that we address. There was heavy industry around at some time, so we have to take care of some other environmental things to make sure it's safe.
About right behind the PennDOT building there.
Right behind the PennDOT
where
building.
the park used to be or whatever. There used to be a park or something back there.
Well, the green belt runs through that area.
Right.
So they're working that out too. That's something else we have to work with is figuring out the green belt and how that plays into that. But the idea is giving people a home first, and then trying to sort out all these other things. That's how we start working with the chronically homeless. The other aspect of homelessness, and I was on a show with someone the other day, and I was talking to them, and I said, there was a time I came to a realization that I had a small business, and I had to shut the business down. And because I was renting, I didn't have money for my rent that month. And so when you didn't have money for rent, you have to move. But then if you don't have money for 1 month's rent, you don't have money for 2 months' rent to move into the next place. Right? So exactly. We had to figure out what we were going to do for a little while. I was taking my daughter to school, and, I told them the situation because they were asking about, the house and everything. And I'm like, well, we're staying with my mother-in-law. She says, oh, you're homeless. I said, no, we're not homeless. I'm just staying with my mother-in-law. She's like, you don't have a house. You're staying on someone's couch. It's like, oh, you're right. I am homeless.
Right.
That is more of a temporary homelessness, and that has to be addressed with addressing our affordable housing crisis. If we don't address that, we're going to see more and more of that. And it sounds like it's minor when you say temporarily homeless. It's really not, because one, if you're raising children, they lose a sense of familiarity. They lose a sense of comfort on where they're going to live.
And security as well. That
Right.
A secure place to go to after school every day.
The security's gone, and that's going to cause problems later in life. If you're looking at you lose a job, you're trying to get another job. If you don't have a home, good luck putting out resumes and it making and it sticking. You can only stay with a family member so long before they're asking you to move on. These are problems that can last with a family for years, even if you think of it as being a temporary situation. We have to get our housing to become more affordable. And I think one of the ways we do that, I'm not big in saying that we need to go to landlords and say we're going to cap your rent, that you're not allowed to charge more than that. I believe if we do that, we lose people who will invest their money into renovating and building houses, which will make it so that we don't have good, clean housing stock. But I am a believer that if we increase the supply of houses, we will bring the price down, because the market will then dictate to the landlord that you can't get an exorbitant amount for your rent because they have an option that's going to be much less. And how we do it the easiest way is through home ownership. You may have heard interest rates are high, but I tell you, a mortgage is still lower than rent. And if we move a lot of our tenants into becoming homeowners, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to help create those communities that I told you that I missed from my youth, because people are not moving around anymore because they own the home, they live there. And when they own it and they live there, they're going to care who their neighbors are. And they're also going to care what's going on in front of their house. They see a kid running and that shouldn't be doing what he should be doing. They're going to say something to him because you're affecting their home, their neighborhood, their investment. They're going to be there long term. So when they do see these kids, it's not just a kid running down the street using my marijuana smoker from earlier. It's Johnny. Now you don't call the cops on Johnny because you knew Johnny since he was 5.
So, yeah,
you go outside and you say, right, you say, Johnny, what are you doing? You're smoking a joint in front of my house. Get out of here. Go home. I'm calling your mom. And that's how we, one, make Harrisburg more affordable, and two, we help bring back these communities that we feel that we've missed.
That's a very good answer. Well, I know when people drive by these, why don't you get a job, and it's hard to get a job when you don't have an address to put down, or you don't have a place to take a shower and clean up before you go to a job interview, or
I hear
or
that.
even a way to get there,
I hear that a lot, and that's so disingenuous when you say, why don't you just get a job? And it's usually the people that they wouldn't hire. If they were the hiring manager, they wouldn't hire that person because, like you said, they don't have a place to get a shower. So they're coming to your interview and they may have dirty, smelly clothing. You're not going to hire that person.
Probably not. No.
They don't have an address. So that means it's going to be very tough for you to correspond with them outside of maybe phone and email. But even at that, without an address, it may be tough to keep a charge on the phone. Exactly. It may be tough to keep actually minutes on your phone. You may have a hard time keeping an actual phone open. So it's not as simple as get a job. We first have to help people up. Once we help them up, then they can start helping themselves, and then the idea is then they will help someone else up.
That's very good. So what does someone on the city council actually do? What does the city council of Harrisburg, what do they actually do? I asked that the other day when I asked who's going to be on the show. What does the city council do? Maybe some people don't even know what people on the city council do.
So
I did not.
I'm going to tell you a little known secret that most people won't tell you. There are people running for city council that don't know what city councilors do. And this is not a knock.
I'm hoping I didn't ask you that question.
No, this is not a knock on anyone. And the reason I say that is because you don't really know until you get the job. So when I was running in the past, I had ideas of what they did on council, but I didn't really know because I hadn't actually done it. But having done the job, a lot of it is, dealing with some of the stuff that we just talked about. Hey, kids keep coming out smoking pot in front of my house. What can you do for me? Can you help me out here? My neighbor keeps parking in my handicap spot. What can we do to fix and remedy that? That's a lot of like the day-to-day stuff that you'll get in city council. But pretty much we're the legislative body of the city. So we help, write and vote on ordinances. We serve as you may hear about. Congress has the purse strings. Kind of the same thing with city council.
Okay.
We vote on the budget. We vote it up, vote it down. We look at that type of thing. But every now and again, we get to make some real change in the city. We can create ordinances that affect the everyday life of our residents. When I was on council, we voted on a disparity study. The disparity study brought to light everything that we already knew. This is going back to our original question with the DEI. We knew that the city was not spending enough money with, we'll say, diverse businesses. And that was coming through a city where the majority of the residents are minorities. But the majority of our contracts did not go to businesses that were either owned by or working with minority contractors or diverse contractors, because it's not just minorities. It's looking at contractors from several different angles, but not being of the mainstream. So when we voted on that kind of gave a legal picture so that we could act on, so that we could say, okay, if we as the city are going to want to invest in our residents, let's make sure that we're investing in a way that reflects our city. Let's make sure that we award contracts in a way that we're going to say, okay, we want the people working on our city to look like people living in our city. And that's something that we worked on. That's when city council can make a major push. Another thing that I've done is I introduced a program that the city is starting to work on in the very infancy stages. This was a dollar home program. We'd seen it in the past, but in the past they would sell the homes for $1, an investor would buy them, and it would sit and languish and never go anywhere. This dollar home program, we were marrying with a mortgage company called NACA, and they were supplying the money for the purchase and the renovation of the home, basically allowing you to buy a lot from the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority for $1 and put a brand new home on it. And our goal was, going back to our disparity study, making sure that we're working with contractors from the city. What that would do would give one, affordable housing to our residents. Let's make sure that they're not falling into a landlord raising their rent every year, every month, every whatever. They have a mortgage that's fixed for 30 years. They know what their costs are going to be. They can plan around that. Next, we are adding a home to Harrisburg's tax rolls. We need money in this city. If we add more houses, we get more money to the city. We can have more functions, more fun things, or at least more sustainable things, such as our infrastructure. And then the third part was contractors from in the city. So now we're hiring people and we're putting money in the pockets of our residents. So hopefully then we're going back to that guy that's living in a tent. He can get a job working in the city, and now he can get a house and he pays for that home, and he's not in a tent down by the river.
His self-esteem has risen. He can get a decent job, raise his family there, give them a sense of security.
Absolutely.
That's all good. Yep, that's great. So one last thing, why would we want Rob on our city council?
Thank you. That's a good question. I believe that as a candidate and as a person that I'd be a great person to have on the council because, one, I am a very thoughtful. I try to look at everything that I'm commenting on, everything that I'm voting on, and see like what are the repercussions if I make this vote, if I go in this direction. I am a collaborator. I am not like a demagogue of any sort where I say, hey, this is what I believe, it must be X, Y, or Z. I say, how can I move the city forward? And I can work with whoever I need to work with to move it forward. So I do not take disagreements personally because of that. I look at saying that we want the same thing. We may just have different thoughts on how we get there. So I can work with anyone, whether it's a mayor or other council members, so that we can move things forward. And then I also believe that I'm a compassionate person, so I want to make sure that as we're moving the city forward, that we are lifting up the people that are typically forgotten, typically found at the bottom of everything. I want to just move everyone forward, so that we have a city that works for every person that lives in our area. And then the last thing, which is something that I think that we haven't been doing well enough, is collaborating not just with our other council members, but looking at other municipalities in the area, looking at the state, looking at the county, and working together so that we can move this city in this region forward. We're a city of 50,000 people, but our region is closer to our region is closer to 700,000 people. If we look at like the Harrisburg metro area, we're probably like 400 something thousand people. But we take that, now we can start pushing and pulling for more of the federal funds to help us as a region to move ourselves forward. And those are the things that I think I bring to the table that should interest the residents of Harrisburg.
Great. Good answer.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming on today and telling us about yourself and what you plan on doing with Harrisburg City. I really enjoyed having you here today.
Well, thank you, Willa. It was definitely a pleasure. I had a great time speaking with you today.
You were my first interview with somebody as, up in the city like that, so that's awesome.
Great.
Thank
a lot.
you very much. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks, Chris, for having me here today. Your studio is beautiful, like I said before. And good night, everybody. I'll see you next time.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Come on. Thanks for sponsoring me.